Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jewfolk. This week I sit down with Jake Jarecki, who started Feed Me Farms last year on the back lawn of Bet Shalom Congregation and has expanded around the West Metro. We talk about what led him down this career path, the challenges of urban farming, and what he's got growing this year on this week's Who the Folk podcast. Jake Jarecki, welcome to the Who the Folk podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Lonnie. Pleasure.
Although, I guess technically I'm joining you, because I'm sort of at your place of work.
Yeah, you're on my territory here at Bet Shalom Synagogue, my alma mater of bar mitzvah and confirmation and all that.
So I wanted to talk to you because a good friend of mine who's part of her yard, their yard, I should say, the whole family, you're using for farming. And I just got the tour of a gorgeous piece of land that you have built a farm on here at Bet Shalom. Go back to the beginning. How did you get started in farming? Where did this love come from?
Yeah, it's relatively new for me in my career, which is kind of I've bounced around in like environmental aligned work and since I graduated college, but I was in an AmeriCorps position in Portland, which I did after I finished college in Seattle with a degree in oceanography of all things, which really fascinated me and got me really into like climate science research, and I kind of wanted to take that more into the education side of environmental studies, and so I did some outreach and education positions in Portland, and they just kind of led to some conferences where I met farmers, and I got really, really into it. I wanted to go volunteer on a farm. I started to read a lot of books about where farming and environmental action kind of can meet, and how some forms of regenerative farming can be a super great method for reducing carbon in the atmosphere, and that just, it just felt like a solutions-based approach to some of the climate catastrophes, and that's what motivated me. And then the food and the alternative lifestyle and just watching things grow and learning more and more kind of snowballed for me from there. So
how long have you been doing this for?
This is the second season. I've been running Feed Me Farms, which is the farm that I started 2 years ago. So I started this, the pandemic year, or I guess it was 2019 that filed the paperwork and stuff, and reconnected here at Bet Shalom where I grew up and everything, and reached out to them with this idea about using the big lawn behind the building that was mostly sitting around, and they brought it to the board and voted on it, and all agreed that they'd be happy to lend me the space, and as well as some storage space for my tools and using the cooler for the produce, and it's all come together here in the last 2 years. So now we're entering the second season. This is season 2, and it's been we've expanded a little bit. I say we, but it's pretty much just me. But, I have brought a friend on recently. My buddy Aaron has been such a help, so I hope he can really take this to the next level with me. But this is season number 2, and I have more land that's I've grown in size as far as the footprint that I'm growing on, about doubled since last year.
Wow, that's
maybe a little less. Yeah,
that's a lot more space though.
Yeah.
So how do you find people? So again, our family friend who you're growing, I believe, mostly garlic at their house.
Yeah.
How do you connect with people? How do you find people who are willing to give up some space in their yard for you to farm on?
So I really, tried to pound the pavement on searching for land the fall before my first growing season, so fall of 2019. Mm-hmm. And, I just used Facebook to really, reach out to all the community groups that, you can find, all the different buy and sell groups and the neighborhood groups, and, connected. I had lined up the main plot here at Bet Shalom already, so through that kind of as the first step, the rabbi here and other members of the community shared my posts and just helped me reach out further and further. And so I met our mutual friend where I'm growing the garlic that was, I think they know Rabbi Lockett's, and so that was a connection there through them, and now I have my newest plot is at a church down the road from here at Bethlehem Lutheran Church on Minnetonka Boulevard in Tonkawood, and that is one of the board members or one of the community members there, at least, Heidi Peterson, is the mother of a girl I grew up with, and same Facebook.
So it's who you know.
Yeah, it's who you know. That's all it is so far. I mean, might go door knocking one day for just canvassing for more land, but so far it's been through reaching out and getting help.
Seems like networking 101, really.
Yeah. I'm leaning on all of my social capital here for sure.
So how do you decide what to grow? Walking through the plot here at Bet Shalom, there was some kale, Swiss chard, a lot of greens, a lot of peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers. Sort of would feel sort of like the gardening staples, if you will. How do you?
Great question. Last year I was growing a lot less variety, and the first and primary motivation for what I choose to grow is kind of what makes sense on a super small piece of land, because for instance, if you're out in the country and you have a tractor, you can plant a bunch of tomatoes and corn and soy and onions, things that I don't really grow because they're labor intensive and they're pretty dirt cheap in the markets anyway, so you're not going to really be able to get far with that.
Your margins are pretty poor on that.
Yeah, and so things like things that grow fast that and have a higher value are kind of what I first targeted. So lots of salad greens is one of my main things that people really like, and microgreens as well. So those are like little baby shoots of plants that you grow just in a tray, and you cut them in 2 weeks. And so that's different than salad greens, which are grown in the field and take a month and a half or something. Mm-hmm. But all fresh, salady kind of stuff was a focus, and then small root crops like radishes and the kind of baby carrots, trying to plant things densely and grow them in a shorter amount of time. But, so you still get 100 pounds of carrots out of your bed, but it's 1,000 little carrots instead of 100 full pound carrots. You know what I mean? So densely planting and growing things in fast turnover is kind of the main motivation of what to choose. But then I started doing CSA shares last year, which is pretty much a subscription service to a farm where people pre-purchase a box of veggies every week that they buy them all up front at the beginning of the season, and then they're guaranteed an assortment every week that is whatever's available and in season. And so that people get sick of having only salad for 20 weeks. So that encouraged me to do more variety, and talking to other farmers that do small scale urban farming stuff in Minneapolis here convinced me that I could do tomatoes and cucumbers and really some of the things that I love, but I had thought might not be profitable, really, I believe can be. So adding more variety.
So you mentioned some of the other, people you've talked to, like urban farmers, especially in Minneapolis. Is that, without giving, too much publicity to competitors, but
don't mind at all.
Okay, fair enough. Then. Who are some? Are there a lot of people in this community of urban farmers like yourself that can that are people you can bounce ideas off of or collaborate possibly in certain ways?
The answer is yes, for sure. Do I know them? No. So this last year I was really kind of flying solo and just felt, the day-to-day work that had to be done, just planting and harvesting and selling was about all I had in me. And so, reaching out and getting advice or bouncing ideas off people and networking was much more of a winter operation. And so I made a point to just reach out to some people that I had seen, and there's a few local groups and stuff that I've connected with. There's the Twin Cities Growers Network, it's called, that I connected with through the Agriculture Extension Office at the U of M.
Oh, nice.
And so, I made just a couple of hellos before I got swamped the first season, and those have got me on a couple email lists where now there's Zoom meetings that have happened over the last year and things where I've seen other farmers that are in the area. California Street Farm is down in Minneapolis, and Growing Lots is doing really cool small scale stuff, and There's a bunch more, but I don't know them very well. But that, and then I have like a mentor, a buddy AJ, who had his own farm in St. Paul, and he and I worked at the same farm previously in Wisconsin, but at different times. But that we met through that place, and so he's really held my hand through it as well. And yeah, there's a lot going on, and a lot of people growing food, urban and suburban. Not as much suburban. I think I'm striking out in that area, but yeah, there's a good amount going on in the scene here and around the country and Canada too, big time.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting because like suburban feels like it makes a little more sense to me, only in the sense that there's more land. There's more, you have less density.
Right? Yeah, there's more lawn, you'd think.
Yeah.
That crossed my mind too, and that's why I thought about looking out here. I'm out here first and foremost because this plot at the synagogue seemed, like a fantastic starting point, and that was a green heron we just saw fly by.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, beautiful at the pond at Bet Shalom here. But yeah, once I connected with them and got locked in this piece of land, then I was, from here on out, it's like this is the epicenter where I have the storage and the washing and the tools stored and everything. So it's really important to for me to have been thinking about working out from this being kind of the center point of the.
This is home base.
This is home base, and you don't want to go too far to, that's why I have garlic planted up in Plymouth mainly, is because it's a really low maintenance thing where I can, to drive 20 minutes somewhere to pull some weeds out every week is kind of a waste, but working with closer pieces of land near the synagogue here is my ideal approach.
So how much more are you looking to expand? Obviously, you've got a few plots here and there around. Obviously, this, I think you said it was roughly, an eighth of an acre? Little less than an eighth of an acre?
I got to double check, but I think I'm on even a tenth
okay.
total. So this plot at the synagogue is less than a tenth, and then you add up my next plot at the church down the road, Bethlehem Lutheran, that's half this size, and then my other two plots are half that size. So it's really...
so roughly
I'm about a tenth of an acre
wow.
total,
okay.
and I'm at a point right now where I put in so many tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff that I'm running out of space to do my all my fast planting of salad greens and radish and stuff. So I'm looking right now to find more space. But I think sweet spot up to a half acre of total land would probably be much more than I could handle alone, and I think can be made pretty useful for supporting myself and maybe another employee on if you get creative and iron out the kinks on a half acre.
So where can people find you? Where can they find your food?
You can find my food at Richfield Market, the farmers market. That's Saturday mornings at the Veterans Memorial Park, and that runs from 7 a.m. to noon.
Okay.
And that's every Saturday, starting a couple weeks ago. Then I have CSA shares that I have for sale, and I still have a few more openings, although I'm getting close to closing the door on that, just so that I can make sure I fulfill my commitments to the customers I already have. So, but CSA shares, again, which is like a subscription where you get your assortment every single week, and you come pick it up, and you get a fun grab bag of really healthy in-season stuff, and it's for those who like to cook and like to eat well and eat local, and that's something you enjoy in your family. It's a kind of a fun exercise. So you don't know what you get till you open the bag, and it's like, wow, what do I do with bok choy? And you got to learn how to cook new things. And I've enjoyed being a customer of CSAs in the past, but. So those are the two outlets at the moment. Last year I had salad mix selling at Lake Winds on Minnetonka Boulevard, and I'm hoping to get things back over there. Also hoping to connect with chefs and have restaurant sales, especially.
That'd be great.
I think, the local food scene is
pretty good.
It's about to explode again too. I really think.
Get out and go eat at restaurants again. It'll be a nice change of pace.
Yeah, and so. Those are, some of the areas I'm looking to where you can get things right away is the market and the CSAs, and then hopefully soon a few other areas.
So, what are some of the things that went into? I mean, obviously, you had this idea. You wanted to bring this farm to life. What goes into starting it? Because obviously, it's not. It's not like a normal. I don't know what I mean. What is normal? It's not like most other businesses. It is.
It sure isn't.
Literally, I mean, it is very. It is literally labor intensive. It is all about that. So, like, what goes into it? How do you even take that first step?
So, from scratch, I would say, the first idea before I did this, and before I would recommend anyone else do this, is go work on a farm that isn't your own, and learn from people that have been doing it for a while. But also know when you learn. There are a lot of things that I learned. I won't say any bad ill will, but like I've learned. I've done the few things intentionally different from things I learned at the last farm I was at, and I'm sure that in a couple of years I'll do things differently than I'm telling myself to do them now. It's it's just adapting and kind of making a few of your own calls or things you see can be improved on always. But getting started was just taking the plunge. I knew I needed to find some money, and I reached out and found some very affordable rates on small farm business loans that are really useful stuff, like through with some government backing and stuff. So that's number one, is you can't start something without having a little bit of funding. It doesn't have to be huge, but you got to buy a lot of tools. You got to plan to support yourself during the beginning, and you got to buy a lot of seeds and all the unknowns, a truck, things that you just can't get around without.
Right.
So, then there's starting a company legally, getting a LLC filed and a tax ID and all that stuff, and but then really planning out the season, especially too, is knowing what you're going to plant and ordering ahead all your seeds before. The last 2 years have been like a crazy supply chain backup with seed ordering, just like everything else. So
Is it because people, like anecdotally, like what you're hearing, is it that people are, for the most part, trapped in some way, that they've taken on this new hobby?
Oh, yeah. Why is there?
Yeah,
like,
where's
a
the
demand
shortage? Where the supply
I
chain
think
breakdown happens?
I think a lot of it is like maybe even in like the packaging kind of department, like at these places where they were social distancing and they just couldn't efficiently,
if you can't staff up enough,
I kind of think,
production.
but I don't, as far as I think it's a little of both too. I bet I'm not the only one who's taken a stab at this as a new lifestyle or career push or just hobby in this crazy last year. So I bet it's a combination.
Well, I mean, obviously this past year has been odd. You're starting this up. I mean, you had started it up pre-pandemic, but your first growing season.
Yeah, it was the heat of it.
It was the heat of it. Was that good or bad for business?
I have no exact ballpark to like compare, but I don't know if it was bad. Honestly, it was
right.
It was kind of for me personally, it was like a really great chance because I don't know, everyone was just locking themselves in and feeling, as far as I could tell, and I was feeling it too, just sort of separated from the world and isolated in their apartments, and maybe all the perks of going into the office and having social relationships at your job kind of, for some people I know, covered up some of the reasons they don't really like the kind of work they do. And for me, although I wasn't really getting to see anyone, I was doing most of this alone. I was diving into something I cared about at the exact time when the rug got pulled out from a lot of people. So in that regard, it was really nice at the timing for me, but also the markets got kind of screwed up. The farmers markets, I'm sure they were better the year before because they had, at least last year, they began with a lot of very limited people allowed in at a time, and it was it just wasn't really a conducive environment, and I think a lot of people didn't go because they didn't feel safe. But yeah, in general, it was the plants do fine in a pandemic, and like everybody eats no matter what, and it didn't. At least I didn't have like a venue that had to close. It didn't interfere too much with the act of planting and growing and harvesting and selling, really.
Right.
In fact, I heard a lot of farmers that said they had a better year last year because everyone was home cooking and getting back into, their kitchens. So
Interesting. That makes sense. That last point makes sense. You just don't know. Obviously, you have nothing to compare it to with it having been your first season.
Totally. I wouldn't have a baseline from previous, but I worked as hard as I could, and I didn't ever like throw much out or anything. I donated, surplus when I had it, but it wasn't, like I was running into a problem where I got all this food, but there's no way to run a business in this kind of environment.
Right. Do you end up having a lot of surplus at the end of like each week at either the farmers market or through CSA?
I honestly still don't even have great benchmarks. So this, I've only had this year. I've only had the farmers markets going for like 3 weeks and my CSAs for 2, and so I'm a little behind on my planting for this year anyway because I had to do a lot of bringing in new soil amendments on the plots, and setting up new plots. So anyway, the abundance is just kind of barely enough at the moment, but last year there were points where I just had, I brought 100 bags of salad to the food shelf or something.
Wow.
And, sometimes it's just like I couldn't, I didn't plan properly necessarily, so it's like
right.
I planted so much, and then I had it all harvested, and it was like, wow, I need to be,
Okay, now what?
Yeah. So then I was like, oh shoot, I got to do CSAs, and it's kind of, you don't want to sell a product you don't have, but you don't want to have a product you can't sell either. So, but I think if they're, especially everything's going to peak in like July and August, and I'm sure that I will, try to take on more CSAs and maybe go to a second market and still bring things to ICA every week once it's pumping.
Awesome. Well, it's great that obviously you mentioned ICA. It's a great program out here in the West Metro. It's great that there's something like that what you grow doesn't go to waste and doesn't have to get thrown out. That there is a place it can go.
And a lot of the farmers that were at the Minnetonka market with me last year, which I'm not unfortunately just taking a break from this year, so I can do more on the farm. But I know that they had folks show up who collect food for ICA, like employees there, volunteers, and other people. Other farmers there I know would, in addition to that, they would drive theirs in the middle of the week because they had lots of stuff to give them. So
that's great.
Yeah, they get a lot of good food, and they were really happy with salad for me because it's one of the things that's kind of considered more of like a luxury purchase for a lot of people. Is
really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's you don't buy greens if you don't have rice or meat or more staple
True.
stuff, and if you're scraping by on that, you might miss out on some of the finer nutrients that you also need. So
interesting. Well, excellent. Well, Jake, last 2 questions, and we will let you get back to the farm or getting out of here. Depending,
it's a little hot. I might just stop today. Yeah.
I wouldn't blame you. It's middle of a very, very hot stretch for you, I'm sure. What is your favorite Jewish holiday?
Favorite Jewish holiday? I would say Passover. I have just the fondest memories of screaming Dayenu when I was a kid. Like, I loved that song for some reason, and I still do. But I just sung along really intensively, as well as great food. Get to see all the family that you rarely see. Passover is nice, and it's very traditional. I kind of like that it's so old, and teaching people about Passover. It's like you're celebrating something from 2,000 years ago. Like, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
3,000.
And what is your favorite Jewish food?
Ooh, favorite Jewish food. It's got to be like a Reuben. I've been teaching Jewish cooking classes at the synagogue here
Really?
for their religious school, and all over Zoom over the last year. But it's been so fun. It's like, I love it. It's they all Zoom in. We we have recipes ready before, and we could do our shopping, and then we join in, and we've made blintzes and tuna salad and challah and lots of Mediterranean kind of stuff like an orzo salad and a million shakshuka, all kinds of Israeli stuff. It's been great. So, but I would go with deli food. Reuben with corned beef and pastrami
Ooh, nice.
On caraway rye with mustard cheese and and sauerkraut grilled. Final answer.
Now I'm hungry. Well, Jake Jarecki, thank you so much for joining me this week, for having me out, for giving me the tour of the plot here, and best of luck with Feed Me Farms.
Thanks, Lonnie. Thanks for having me.
The Who the Folk podcast is part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network, a product of Jew Folk Inc. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you have suggestions for other podcast guests, please email them to me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. For our other shows, check out tcjewfolk.com/podcast.